Cool.
Welcome back.
Hello, friends and family and strangers. But you're our friends now, so you're not strangers.
Well, welcome to episode 2
of Pluto
Still a Podcast. Yeah. That's the name of our podcast.
And that was our intro song.
And we're PSAP. Signing off. Just kidding. So
Andrew, you want to explain what we're going to talk about today?
Let's just talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
Number one thing you guys should know, our album, if you're listening to this, our debut album is available now on all major streaming platforms.
Yeah.
We're talking Spotify. We're talking Apple Music. We're talking
Deezer.
We're talking Tidal. Is it on? It's not on Tidal.
It is on Tidal.
It's on Tidal.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jay-Z for making Tidal.
I'm pretty sure it was Drake.
Okay.
So
anyway, go listen to that.
the album
first.
is called Get Over Yourself.
Our album's called Get Over Yourself.
It's
And I just want to say, before you listen to this podcast, go listen to the album because you need to have some context. Also, we want you to listen to our album.
Yeah.
Because we get 0.2 cents from it. So
That's not why we want you to listen to it.
that's why I want you to listen to it.
Okay.
Just kidding. Anyway, you know why? Because
You can also buy
music.
it. You can also buy it for $10, and that would actually help us a lot.
You can do that.
Support us so we can keep making music like this
Yeah.
or like that.
Yeah, or don't. We're probably gonna keep doing it anyway. You can't stop
We are,
us.
but it's gonna help us.
You can't stop us. World.
You're getting a little ahead of yourself here.
I'm getting a little aggressive.
Yeah, you're kind of scaring me.
Yeah.
You knew that?
I did. I was like, oh, I'm kind of scared, Bryce.
Spooky over here.
All right, well, let's just cut the crap and talk about what this is going to be about. We're going to walk you guys through our album, our debut album, Get Over Yourself, which is now available on all major streaming platforms.
Please.
And we're going to continue to plug it shamelessly.
Yeah.
No, we're going to talk about how we wrote these songs. We're not going to give too much away because I think it's important that you guys listen to it and make your own opinions about it and form your own ways you interpret what the songs are about. But we want to tell you a little bit about how we recorded them because I think there's some pretty cool stories in there as far as how we recorded them. Different things we got experimental with.
Yeah.
Would you agree that?
Yeah,
that
of course.
happened? And then
It's
try to explain to you what "Get Over Yourself" means
yeah.
as a title.
Let me just give a little intro
Do you have
to the Get Over Yourself.
Do you have a teaser?
A little teaser.
A little teaser.
Get Over Yourself has been a very long adventure over the course of 11, maybe 10 months.
Well, since we started writing it, it was more than a year. It was December 2017.
I'm talking since we've, I guess, started with our producer Jack, and started getting concrete ideas about what's actually happening.
Just call it an even year.
Sure, yeah. So
Call it a year.
This has just been a long adventure, and we just want to kind of unravel it with you. Not too much, but give you an idea of how much of an adventure and how long this process has been, but how awesome it's been too. We have some great stories to talk about, and
lots of cool little things. So, where should we start?
Well, let's go through each track.
Let's just go through each track.
Not that each track has been recorded in the order that they're
they're presented in, but we'll just talk about each one.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
First track, "The Man Outside My Window." I wrote the lyrics to this song when I was a landscaper at Northwest University. Many of these songs were written when I was landscaping. I don't know. I guess mowing lawns inspires me to write lyrics, but I'd be doing landscaping duties, like you do when you're a landscaper, and then I would think of something cool, and then I would wait till my lunch break, and I would write it in my notes on my phone, and then that's how a lot of these songs took place. Specifically, this first one. The first line, which is, "There's a man outside my window who knows more than he should know or could know." I thought that was kind of cool. I guess we can kind of talk what the song's about a little bit. I just don't want to give too much away, but...
Well, I would say more how you recorded it, when you recorded it, and how... Because this song, it was done, and this was the only track on the album that wasn't recorded in the studio.
One of two. Beer and Loathing as well, but...
We can talk about that one.
Okay, so let me set the scene. summer. It's hot. I'm a landscaper. It's like my first week of landscaping. It's not a great job. I mean, it was a great job, but it's like super tiring. So I'm coming home from work. I'm really tired. I think I had minor heat stroke. I was really sunburnt because I wasn't putting on enough sunscreen. I was in a really weird frame of mind, and I was like, no one's home at my apartment that I was at. All my roommates were gone. So I was like, I'm just going to record something right now because I just am so bored, but I don't want to go to sleep because if I take a nap, then I won't be able to fall asleep later tonight, which would suck. I'm sure you've been there. So I was like, I'm going to record this song, but I only wanted to use my little tiny toy acoustic guitar that I have, and then this weird like keyboard accordion thing that you hear a couple times on the album that I got from Goodwill for like $35. That was like the instrumentation that I wanted. So basically, I took that line that I had written earlier, like I said, when I was mowing lawns, and I sort of fleshed that out to be an entire song. Then I recorded one version of the whole song that was just really weird and like minor and like scary and like all these weird effects in the vocals and stuff. And I pretty much finished that version of it, and I was like, this is like, I understand what I was doing, but this is just really terrible. Like, this cannot go on the album. So I started from scratch again. So I've already been like an hour into this process, and I was like, I got to start over again on this song. But I did it because I was so bored. So I tracked everything in the bathroom in my apartment. Like, everything on the song was tracked in this bathroom. And I think at the time we had the title Get Over Yourself for the album. We already decided that's what it was going to be called. But we didn't have a title track, and we were cool with that. But at this point, when I was writing this, I was like, this could be the intro to the album, essentially, because it was a short song.
The closest thing to a title track.
Yeah, so I was like, I want to end this song with the words "Get Over Yourself." So that's how it ends. It's like, take a deep breath and get over yourself, and it sort of like shuffles in, maybe shuffles isn't the right word, but it like introduces you to this whole like concept of the album, basically. And then after that, it goes right into the next song. But yeah, so I recorded it all in the bathroom. Just a really weird like mindset that I was in, I think, because I was so tired, like I said, and just like sunburnt everywhere. It was very strange. It was like a spiritual experience, honestly. It was really weird.
Wow.
Not like in a pretentious way, like in a scary. Like it was like frightening. Like not like a lot, but like I don't know. It was just weird. It was just a strange time. But yeah, I did that, and then I remember I showed it to you, and I was like, I think this should be the intro to the album because it's like short, and it kind of covers some of these themes. And you're like, this is really weird, but it's cool. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the inspiration comes from Modern Baseball's Holy Ghost. How it like transitions immediately into the second song.
Yeah. Yes, Modern Baseball's whole album Holy Ghost starts with a track called Holy Ghost that was also recorded in a bathroom. That was part of the reason I was like, maybe I should try tracking this in the bathroom. After I tracked the bad version of it, I was like, maybe I should go in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So that's where I did that. Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say it's like a ripoff, but it's like kind of similar to that song. I guess I wouldn't say it's a ripoff. I mean, they don't have a copyright on album intros.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, we can say I was inspired by that.
And that one we didn't touch for a while. You mixed it every once in a while.
Yeah.
But I didn't do anything on it until like a few weeks ago.
I know. I was like, I kind of want another vocal track on this one.
Or maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I'll just do like some harmonies and you can blend that in a little bit.
Yeah. So we went back into your bathroom.
Yeah.
And recorded the harmonies for this song, which you can hear. Yeah. And then Jack and Bay, our two friends who mastered the album and mixed most of it, they didn't even hear the song until like 3 days ago when they mastered
the day
album.
that they mastered
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, you guys need this song, don't you? So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really need to talk too much more about that.
No.
As far as what it's about, you guys can take your best guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious.
And then the one it bleeds right into is
Yes.
I Want You, So I Tried to Kidnap Your Boyfriend,
Yes.
which was originally called I Want You, So I Tried to Kill Your Boyfriend.
Kill Your Boyfriend, which I figured was a little bit too edgy. I feel like I should say as a disclaimer, I've never thought about kidnapping someone before, or like killing someone, or committing a crime in the name of love. This song is basically like...
And you've never actually done it, which is more important.
I also have never done it. I have never considered it, nor have I done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the song is like, not necessarily a joke, but it's very tongue-in-cheek. Both in lyrics and in style. Like, it's pretty heavy-duty, as a song. And I think we were like, almost as a parody of like punk music. Like
Yeah.
I would say we're like kind of a punk band, but I think for this one we were like, what if we just like punked it out to the max?
It's absolutely the most punky song on the album.
Like
for sure.
excuse me, like intentionally like over the top as a parody of like punk music. You know what I mean? And like lyrically too, it's not meant to be taken super seriously. I think the main idea was like the concept of like imagining all these crazy things in your head, and then like when it gets down to the actual situation you imagine yourself in, like you don't do anything. You know, that's like the whole basic structure of the song. It's like this guy imagining all these like crazy stuff he's gonna do to get to this girl, and then at the end he actually finally gets his chance, and he's like, nothing at all. That's what he says.
Yeah.
Open my
You
mouth.
want to talk about like how you wrote it?
Yes. I wrote this in my dorm room, my sophomore year of college. I was, gosh, how did this song happen? I think it started with the riff. You just the chord, you da na da da na da da na da 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 na. I just thought it was a kind of a cool progression, and then.
Yeah, I think you and I were jamming. Like you started doing it, and then I literally just did.
Yeah.
And then the snare.
It was just like how punk and like blast beats and like loud in your face and like overbearing can the song be. So we sort of built it from that structure.
Yeah, it ended up being our second single. It was released in like August or September.
Yeah,
or something.
we recorded it on our own, and then we ended up retracking drums with Jack and Bay, and that is the album version. So the single version has a different drum track than the album version
and a
does.
different mix.
And a little bit different mix, yeah. But yeah, that song is really fun. It's a great one to play live. We just had our first concert, actually. We should probably tell them a week ago.
Yeah.
Sprang Flang with Rainboy and Sus and Cherry Tomato. Check out those bands because they're dope. But yeah, like the first note we played, that was the first song we played at the show. And like literally the first note we played, people like were instantly moshing. It was crazy.
It was fun.
So that's a really fun song.
It's a very energetic song.
Energetic, not meant to be taken super seriously. Yeah, just a fun one. Pretty basic story behind how we recorded it. So let's move on to the third track.
Beer and Loathing in Las Vegas. Our first single.
Jinx.
And this is kind of where I decided in my own head that this is where Get Over Yourself started concretely.
Yes.
Because there was a lot of confusion between us of what we're actually going to put on the album. And
the first draft of this album was like 23 songs.
Yeah.
And it ranged everywhere from like rock to rap to like trip hop to like I don't even know, alt J, like drug induced. I mean, not drug induced, but like it makes you feel like you're on drugs. It was a very eclectic album. It was called Infant Maze, which we might still use for something.
Yeah.
We can talk about that later. But anyway, all that to say, like, we didn't. This is the song that like put into stone like what sound we wanted to go for this album and like as a band in general. I think so. You can tell the story of how we recorded.
Okay, cool.
It's pretty cool.
So yeah, we were in my apartment, and we realized we had no access to.
We were rehearsing.
Well, we had no access to a rehearsal room, but I had a kit here, and he had his stuff here. So we were like, well, let's just do it in my room really quietly.
I called in sick to work that
day. We're in an apartment.
Yeah, I called in sick to work, even though I wasn't actually sick.
Yeah.
Hopefully my boss from landscaping doesn't listen to this, but basically I was just like, I don't really want to go to work today.
So it was the best thing you ever did.
I called in sick, and spoiler alert, it's changed our lives forever. So
yeah, basically after that, so we didn't want it to be too loud. Obviously, cymbals are freaking loud, and we put a blanket over the drum kit to muffle as much as we could.
Yeah.
And we just turned his amp down a lot. We put 2 overhead mics on the drums.
Well, we were rehearsing these songs, and then we were like, again, we were just so bored that we were like, let's record a song right now. Like, let's write and record a song right now
and release it.
And release it tonight. Originally, it was not going to be on the album. We were like, let's just see if we can record, mix, and release a song in one day. That was the idea. So it's kind of funny because we thought it wasn't going to be on the album, we like didn't put a lot of effort into the recording process, but that like minimal effort thing became like the aesthetic and sound that we ended up using for the whole album. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But yeah, we just
honestly, I wish the album was more minimal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think we'll experiment with that a little bit more in the future.
Yeah.
Is the idea. But, so the miking setup, we had just 2 overhead mics for the drums. So
two different mics.
Yeah. Two completely
condenser
different
mics.
condenser mics. So no individual drum is mic'd. It's just 2 room mics for the drums. For the guitar, I was playing it through an amp and recording it with the mic on the amp. But then I realized that I forgot to switch the input on my software, basically. So I was essentially tracking guitar with the built-in mic in my laptop, and I was like, oh, that sucks. So then I retracked everything like with the mic and the input switch, and I was like, you know what? That sounds worse. So I went back and used the take that I did through my laptop's built-in microphone. So not only is it like not amped, it's an electric guitar with no amp. So it's just me playing an electric into my laptop's mic, which should sound awful, but it works really, really well.
Yeah.
And then we did vocals in your bathroom once again.
Yeah, that was
Lots of
later that
bathroom
night,
time.
and that's when we knew the bathroom sounded so
That-
good.
yeah, that's when we
We're
knew.
like, wow, this is insane how
Yeah.
like cool this sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love. As soon as I heard it, I was like, I love this so much.
Yeah.
and I want this album
then
to sound like this.
That night, I tracked bass and we mixed it, and then we put it on SoundCloud. Spotify took a little bit to process, but we did release it like within 24 hours was the idea.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's when Jack Joss, our dear friend, contacted us because we knew him from school. He was a fellow student for a year, and then we kind of had stayed in touch just over social media. He knew we had a band, but when he heard that song, because it was our first release on Spotify, he was like, "This is sick! Like, let's meet up and talk about options." So it's funny because that song was not intended to be on the album, but not only did it like inspire the sound of the album, it also like kicked off how we recorded the rest of the album.
Yeah, it brought a connection that was very essential.
Yeah. So kind of funny how that worked out. We wrote it in like literally like 20 minutes.
It was unbelievable.
It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a transcendent experience writing that song. I don't know. I don't think I've really experienced it since then. Hopefully you will, but
yeah,
it was just so easy.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, next song, Good Time.
Good Time.
Or It's Comforting to Know That I Can
It's comforting to know
that
I can still count on you to let me down. I've always been a fan of long song titles, like annoyingly long titles. I've always thought that was just really funny. I don't know, so we did that a couple times on this album. But
so writing process, let's start with what we first wrote for this, remember?
Yeah, okay. So it's kind of similar to Beer and Loathing. We were like at a dead end writing wise, and we were really tired of the songs. This was back when the album was going to be 23 tracks, so we were just confused. I think we were like, what are we doing? You know, there's rap songs, like all these weird, like, maybe someday the rap songs will see the light of day. Don't get your hopes up though. But anyway, we were just like tired of what was happening, and I think just really like, I don't know. I feel like it was not a good mindset. You know, it was like, oh, like this album's gonna suck. Like, why are we even trying to do this? At least that's where I was at that moment. So
we were like,
this is in like the winter of 2017. So
yeah,
this is a while ago.
Well, this is before.
This is before everything.
Yeah, this is before everything.
This is before we talked to Jack.
Yep.
This was just in the writing sessions, basically. And we were like...
In my head, when we were writing the lyrics for it, I was like, this needs to be singable.
Yeah.
This needs to be catchy. It needs to be a great hook.
Yeah.
And we just did these ideas. We were like laying on the ground.
So we like went into the studio.
Yeah.
It was really late at night. So the studio on campus of the school that we go to, it was probably like 11 or like 12 at night. I think it was super late. I was like, I'm going to bring a guitar. Let's just go and like try to write a new song. And like, it was hard. Like, this is the opposite of Beer and Loathing in that sense, because it was like difficult to like, like we tried so many different things and it was all just sounding terrible. And then, I think the only thing we wrote that night for the song was the chorus. But we had this idea of like,
it was just the lyrics for the chorus.
Yeah, it was
I
like,
don't even know if it was a guitar.
usually like, I think we had the guitar.
Okay.
But usually like in a lot of songs, like a normal song, you might say, or like a good song, the chorus is like, you know, the biggest part. Like there's a verse and it kind of builds into the chorus. But I think it was your idea. You were like, what if this song, like at the chorus, just cut everything except for like the guitar and the vocals? So we approached the chorus from that, like writing the chorus from that standpoint, that it was just going to be guitar and vocals. So I had the riff, and then we wrote the words, and now I'm losing my voice, I'm losing my mind, I lose every time with you. Because at the time, we were losing our voices because we had tried so many different things for this song, and we were also losing our minds a little bit because we just thought that our music was terrible.
So yeah, this is one of 2 songs, including Beer and Loathing, that we actually wrote together.
Yeah. A lot of the songs we wrote individually.
Which are 2 of like some of my favorites. So
yeah, so maybe
I'm hoping next time we can write a little bit more together.
It's just difficult that we don't like. I don't know. We never know when inspiration is going to strike.
Exactly,
I feel like so. And we always, but yeah, I think in the future we'll probably write more stuff together because as easy as Beer and Loathing was, and as difficult as Good Time was, I think it's like we produced some really great music. So yeah,
for sure.
But anyway, we wrote the chorus that night, and then we were like, this probably still sucks, but we're just gonna call it a night. And then I think I went home and I wrote some of the verses, and then I came back together and we edited the verses, and then wrote the music for it. And then we were like, you know what, this is actually pretty legit. So we put it on the album, and it's like my favorite song. One of my favorite songs.
It's probably the second punkiest song too.
Yes.
I love it.
It's very pop punk.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to play live. That's my favorite to play live.
Super fun, yeah.
For sure.
And then as far as like in the stew, like the real stew.
Yeah, this was the first song we recorded from the ground up with Jack.
Yep. It was a little bit of a painful process, but it was fun.
It was fun. And the outro, even though you can't really tell, it kind of just sounds like a reverb plugin. What we did was, so the studio that we recorded this at is called 57th Street Productions. It's where Jack works. It's where he like invited us to come and record with him. It's actually in the same building as a church. It's like on the facilities of this church. Do you know what the church is called?
Cascade Community
Church. So it's not like technically owned by the church. It is its own like independent entity, but it's like in the same building as these church facilities. So what that means is out the door into the left of the studio is this like gym where the church like has gym stuff. and we were just messing around in the gym.
We wanted to use the gym as like a natural reverb.
Yeah, I was like, this is a really cool natural reverb. So I took my acoustic guitar and like this terrible practice amp that I have that my uncle gave me, which is like, it's cool. It used to be his amp, but it's like a really, really small practice amp. And we brought that into the gym and then plugged my acoustic guitar into it. And then we connected all these mic cables, like a lot of mic cables, so that we could string the mics like from the studio, like around all these corners through like 3 different doors and then into the gym. Yeah. And then we had 2 mics. We did guitar in the gym through the amp, and then we tracked over that, the 2 of us singing. But since we couldn't have any like monitors in the gym, we recorded the guitars into the studio like Pro Tool session, and then we recorded that onto our phones. And then we put headphones into the phone so that we could monitor while we were recording vocals in the gym. So then, like, me and you were standing like right next to each other with one headphone in each ear, listening to the guitar track and singing over it, and then tracking our vocals over it.
We have a video of it too.
There's a video of it that'll probably come out. Which I mean, it's kind of frustrating because it almost sounds like we just put a reverb plugin on it. But I think there's a little bit of a difference. And I mean, it's just always cool. Like, I'm a big fan of doing things on. Like you can do so much after you record things, you know what I mean? Like with Pro Tools or like there's so many crazy things you can do after you record stuff. But I'm a really big fan of doing things like on the front end of recording, you know what I mean? Like as much as you can do to get the sound you want before it goes into the computer, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So there's a couple other times we'll talk about that we did like weird stuff while recording as opposed to like just putting different effects on it afterwards. And this is the first one that we did was in this gym. So yeah, super fun. Shout out to Jack for putting up with all of our weird and strange ideas and making it work for us. So yeah.
Number 5, Catholic Confession,
aka Catholic Confession.
Yep,
that's what I wanted to call it. But
I mean, you can still call it that.
I can still call it that. This is you have to tell this story because I don't know it.
Oh yeah, well. You're gonna have to help me with it a little bit because it's a little confusing. It's like amidst all of these random songs we created for the first, draft of our album, which was like 23 songs, whatever.
Yeah.
I had this idea for Catholic Confession, and I wanted it to be kind of a little bit of a break from all the other songs, mainly because my writing is a lot different than Andrew's writing or Andrew and I's writing together. So
I think it's the closest thing to a ballad that's on the record.
Yeah, sure. Like it's a little bit of a ballad. It's a little bit of little poppy. I don't know. I just kind of wanted something different on there that still wasn't too far away, so you could keep it in the album, but something just a little bit like a little bit of a break, a little bit of a ballad, a little bit of intermission kind of thing for.
Yeah.
And we knew we were gonna put it in the middle of the album as soon as we heard it, and the idea was I wanted like an overly compressed vocal, a little bit like a telephone effect. I think I got that like Death Cab for Cutie inspiration from that.
Or pumped up kicks.
Yeah.
People like. Yeah.
Also, I'm a huge fan of like O's, like O's and oohs and ahs and stuff. And we didn't up until that we didn't have any of those, and I was like, I want something that's kind of cool and like
whoa.
People are like, oh, this is cool, like bobbing their heads and like, oh,
I think this was before we wrote Beer and Loathing too, wasn't it? Or at least you wrote it before we wrote Beer and Loathing.
Yeah. Yep.
Which also has some whoa-ohs in it.
Yeah, I mean this was on my phone, on notes for a long, long time.
Yeah, I remember.
So like, yeah, it's just cool to really bring it to life.
Yeah, I remember. So you went in and you tracked piano and drums, which, by the way, only song that has a piano on the album, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is another break from things. I think we were like, at least a couple times we considered cutting it, but I think it's like just different enough to add to the overall sound instead of subtracting from it. Because I think if we would have put, I mean, I hate to keep bringing up these rap songs because it's gonna make people want to listen to them. But if we would have put one of those on the album, which we did just for fun in the first place, I think it would have been so different. Yeah. That it would have detracted from the sound. But this song is like, it's right on the line of being different enough to like add to the sound as opposed to detracting from it. So I think it's like honestly one of my favorites on the record.
And I also wanted it because I wanted people who are listening to understand that. Like both of us try to be as versatile musicians as possible, and we want to have like we want to eventually have like Andrew playing drums, me guitar.
Yeah.
Like we just want to bounce around. We don't want to be a band that's just doing one thing.
Exactly.
Like
it's cool that like originally this is the only song that you sing lead on the album.
True.
And originally there was more like we have written more songs where you're singing lead. I think it's like it just kind of worked out that not a lot of those made it onto the album, but in the future there will be definitely more of a balance between both of us singing like lead. Like neither of us are really the front man, you know what I mean? That's sort of the aesthetic we've gone for is like we can all just bounce around. We're just making music. Like it's not about who's in charge or anything. But anyway, so you tracked drums and piano.
Yeah,
I was not there. I was somewhere else. I don't know where. But
I think you're.
I came back, and I think like together we sort of worked through the sound of the song aside because you had only written the drum and piano part, and so we started with bass. And we like wrote the bass part basically and recorded it. And then we were doing guitar. And I'm trying to remember how this came about, but I think we were like because it's sort of a pop song, we wanted the instrumentation to not be anything close to what the instrumentation of a pop song would be.
Sure.
So instead of like an electric lead guitar or something like that, like the only instruments are piano, bass, and acoustic guitar. Again, that little toy, like super small child-sized acoustic guitar that I got for $4 at an antique store.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the only time that we were wildly unprepared to track this song. So like I was in the booth with the guitar, it was mic'd, I knew the chord structure and like that was it. And I was like, Jack, start rolling. And then he would roll and I would just try stuff. And like, if I tried something that worked, we would keep it. But if I tried something that didn't work, we would just go back. And instead of tracking the whole take again, we would just start where the thing that worked ended. And then I would do something else over the thing that didn't work until we got like this chopped up thing with lots of different sections. Like during this, I think it's the second verse, I guess, or the second bridge. Like I'm just doing harmonics on the acoustic guitar. So there's like really no lead instrument at all. It's just bass, drums, and like super thin harmonic parts on the guitar. And it sounds like I don't think it should work as well as it does at all. But somehow
it's
it like
the
congeals.
weirdest song that turned out. It's like I don't even know. I can't even remember how it happened.
Like because a lot of these we got experimental with recording.
Yeah.
But this is the only one we got experimental with writing.
Right.
Like, seriously, it was just like start rolling. I'm gonna do something. If it works, it works. If not, maybe we could do it anyways.
Yeah. And we had Jack on. Background for a while. And
I think we ended up replacing it, but he kind of helped us write the melodies for like some of the woes.
The ending part mainly.
Yeah. Well, originally there was this whole like Latin like metal tag.
Oh yeah, it was so weird.
It was really weird. It was cool. We might use that for something else.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like this huge build, and then it went into this like Latin breakdown because I was like, oh, Catholic confession, like we could do kind of a Spanish guitar thing, you know.
Yeah.
It did not work out as well as we thought, so we ended up just cutting it out and ending it on this kick drum. We call it the kick of death. It's like boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was just like I appreciate that you opened up your song to the rest of us to get experimental with it.
Right.
Because for me, like when I write a song, I tend to be overly particular. Like this has to be exactly like this. But I think it was a really cool experience, at least for me.
I don't know if that was the case necessarily because I just didn't think I planned it well enough to where, because I think I'm the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just think I didn't plan it well enough.
It's just this specific song.
And so I was kind of like, please help.
Yeah.
You know, instead of like, let me open it for you. I was like, please help me. I don't know what to do. And the last thing I'll say about the song is that I'm a lot harder on myself vocally than Andrew is on himself.
Not that I'm not hard on myself. Right. He's just more hard.
I'm just a lot harder on myself. And so this one was very frustrating for me to get correct because I knew what I wanted in my head vocally, and it got, you know, where it is at now, it's satisfactory. So I enjoy it. It's good.
Yeah.
But, yep.
Cool. Let's move on to the next song. Homeless.
Big boy.
Oh boy, homeless.
Homeless.
I also want to put a disclaimer at the front of this track.
Yeah.
I want to say that in no way am I comparing the struggles or the sadness of my very privileged life to those people that are actually homeless. Like I would never want to say that I've struggled more than a person who lives on the streets. I don't know if that is what the song sounds like, but I just want to say that just because it's called Homeless.
It's mainly just a metaphor.
It's completely just a metaphor. Like the idea for the song was that I was in college. I mean, I still am in college, but I was in college, and when I was at school, which is in Washington. So I grew up in Oregon, but I went to school in Washington. So when I was at school in Washington, I would be homesick, missing my family in Oregon. But then when I would go visit my family in Oregon, I would be homesick, missing my friends in Washington. So I was sort of like stuck in this limbo where wherever I was always missing somewhere else. So that's what sort of created this idea of like I don't really have a home because wherever I go, even though I think it's my home, I miss my other home. So like by having two different places that I would call home, you actually have no home because wherever you are, like there's no place you can go that you're gonna call your own, which is how the song turns into. So yeah, I just wanted to say like, you know, I have a huge heart for like the homeless, you know, community of both places, especially in Salem, Oregon, where I grew up. I mean, my dad runs a nonprofit organization. Like, I'm no stranger to, you know, the struggles of those who are less fortunate, and I'm very thankful for the things that I have and the chances that I've been given. It's just a metaphor, so I just wanted to put that at the front of this.
No, that's good.
Basically, I wrote this song also over the summer, also while I was a landscaper. I think the first lyrics that came out, it was like a super hot day. I was mowing lawns because I was a landscaper, and there was like a puddle of water by this like hill, I guess, that I was doing landscaping on. And even though it was like 90 degrees outside, I stepped in the water and it was really cold. And I was like, doesn't it seem weird that like most water that this is so weird, but like most water that you encounter like outside of your home is cold. You know what I mean? Like every puddle you see is usually going to be cold water, like no matter how hot it is outside, you know? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I kind of know what you're talking about. But I've also felt warm puddles.
Puddles, okay. But like generally, generally, if you're dry and then you plunge yourself into water, it's gonna feel cold immediately. You know? So this is really dumb the more I talk about it. But the first thing I wrote was, why does most water that you feel so cold? And I was like, what rhymes with cold? Old. So I was like, what if I tagged, why do people die before they grow old? On the
Which is a sick hook. I love it.
Because at the time, that summer, I'm trying to think timeline-wise what was happening. I know my cat was dying.
I remember you wrote the guitar riff, and you were like, you need to come over here.
Yeah.
And I sat in here, and I was doing like harmonies with you with the homeless. Whatever the hook was or whatever.
Right. So at the time, my cat was dying of cancer, and my grandfather had also just passed away. So, like, not that, that was, I mean, it wasn't like a fun time, but that was sort of like where the why do people die before they grow old? Like, it's not like that was specifically about those two things, but like death was kind of on my mind a little bit. So those are the first two things that I wrote was why do people die before they grow old? Why does most water that you feel so cold? And then I just tagged on, when I was a child, I always do what I was told. So why do I feel like dying before I've grown old? Which I agree is like probably one of the best choruses on the album. Yeah, and then from there the guitar riff happened, the different chord structures and stuff. And then this one I was really hesitant to track because I knew it was going to be really, really hard.
It was.
Which is unfortunate because like the longer you wait, at least for me, like the longer I waited to track it, the more specific the idea became in my mind. So like basically I didn't want to track it because I knew it was going to be too hard to match my vision. But the longer I took to track it, the more specific my vision got, therefore making it even harder to go in and actually match that. So I think at the end of the day, I kind of had to like surrender a little bit of what I had in my mind and be like, that's not exactly what this is going to sound like. Like you have to just kind of let some things happen, which was a cool exercise for me to let go of these strict ideas that I've had and be like, no, like it's actually going to sound like this, and like let's make the best of this instead of working for hours and hours trying to make something that is probably impossible because it only exists in my mind.
Right.
So yeah, so this was one of the final ones that we tracked. I think like the last three of the last three songs that we tracked, and it was pretty straightforward until we got to the outro. Which, if you've heard the song, it has like half the song is the outro to this song. It started with these two guitar parts that are similar, but one of them is in gosh, this is gonna get kind of technical, so you might get bored if you don't know about like music. But they're both in 4/4, but one of them is in a cycle of 3 measures, and one of them is in a cycle of 4 measures. So one of them repeats every 3 measures, one of them repeats every 4 measures. So even though they're playing at the same time in the same time signature, every time they play, the harmony parts and like the chords they create are different until the 12th time. So like one repeats every 3 measures, one repeats every 4 measures, but every 12 measures is one cycle of that whole
catch
riff.
up, yeah.
Yeah. So it started with that, and then basically we just looped that and sort of layered things over it. So the next thing that happened was the vocals, which is this sort of chant that I had written without thinking about time signatures at all. It's like, I have no home, I have no home, I have no place that I can go, I have no place that I will call my own, I have no home, and then it repeats. And we figured out that, gosh, I'm trying to think. This was like, it was like a math problem that you would see in like a textbook. Because we were like, all right, we have this part that's 3 measures. We have this part that's 4 measures. That repeats every 12 measures. The vocal part is, I think, 23 measures total. Yeah. Which means that it would loop and connect with the 12 measure riff every I don't remember. It was 40 measures. Yeah. So I can't even remember how we did it, but we did all the math, and we
did. I remember that conversation too.
We were like, if we loop this many times, then this will happen this many times to get to this point, and they're all going to line up right on this one part.
Yeah.
So we created that with loops and like tracking different things, and then the bass and drums come in 4/4 underneath the three. They come in 4/4 in cycles of 4 underneath the 12-bar cycle, underneath the 23-bar cycle.
Yeah.
So like it honestly it's very sporadic, but I think it works out really well. I think
it sounds really cool.
Yeah. So we tracked everything, and then we looped it until it all lined up at this one point. And then from that point, there was one cycle left of the vocal thing, and we decided to add an accelerando, so it just got like faster and faster and faster until its very end. And that's basically what we did.
It's grand.
It's grand.
That's just the way to put it. It's just extra.
We took one whole day tracking the song, and then one whole other session tracking just the outro. So like tracking the outro took just as long as tracking the song.
Well, and just to give them an idea about how long it took, like even Jack learned so much since the time we started recording with him.
Yeah.
That like the way we recorded it was just so much better. It sounded so much better. And
than
so
how we done
than how we did it. So the outro sounds so much better.
Like the outro took less work to do than the rest of the song because of the time that elapsed between the recording sessions that we did each one on. But so that's pretty much it for that one. Except there's the very very last part of the song, which is just me and a guitar. And again, hard to tell, but this is one of the other experimental things we did. Because the song talks about like sleeping on a bench, we walked across the street from the studio to an actual park bench with a laptop and 2 microphones, and we recorded that very very last part you hear on an actual bench in a park. So that's why you can hear cars driving by in the background.
And we have a video of that too.
We do have a video of that. Surface. Yes, I think after the album, because at the moment the album is yet to come out, but I think when you're hearing this, it'll already be out. But hopefully some of these like behind the scenes footage stuff will come out, and you guys can watch that and see how we made it. But we just wanted to talk about it a little bit because it's kind of cool how that happened. So yeah, I think Homeless is like the closest thing that I have to like a magnum opus, to be really pretentious. Like the closest, like the song that I fought with the most, and like poured the most heart into, I think, both thematically, like lyrically, and musically too. And like, yeah, I guess it's like the biggest, you know, the closest thing that like at least I have personally at this point to like this, you know, grand vision of something that actually like sort of became what I wanted it to become. So
yeah,
I'm pretty proud of it.
I like it.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites. So
it's probably my number 1 on the album.
Yeah. Cool. Next one. What is it?
It's Reach Me a Rose.
Is it?
Yeah.
And then breathing. Yeah.
And then breathing.
Okay, yeah. Reach me a
rose, honey, and pour me a last drop into that there crystal glass. I'm not going to say what book that's from.
It's fine.
But it is taken directly from a book.
This one is sick.
This is the last song we wrote for the album. I wrote it over winter break.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it is.
Christmas 2018.
It is the last one.
And sort of similar to the other, to Good Time, I was just like, we need something new and different for this album.
Yeah. And singable again, too.
And we need something that's like kind of singable. So I started with the riff. I mean, I can't sing it very well, but you get the idea. Just that guitar structure. I wanted it to be like pretty basic, you know, not too like in your face. So that's why most of the song, or like the first half of the song, is just guitar. And again, we use that little accordion thing, accordion keyboard thing. This makes its second appearance on this track.
And this is the least amount of lyrics out of all the songs, too.
Percentage-wise, this is the most like musical song.
Yeah, but it's the most wordy title.
Yes, it's the most wordy title, but it has the least amount of lyrics in the song, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, I mean, it was honestly pretty easy to write once we had like the chord progression and the different things. The main like hook, I guess, musically is the bow 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 bow, you know, which is like sort of what carries the song through the different sections. Like that's where the drums come in. And then I took a solo that I wrote a really 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 long time ago, and I was like, this can fit in this song, so threw the solo in there. And then we were practicing it, and we were like, how do we want to end the song? And Bryce was like, what if we just did this over and over and over again, and then we ended it with just a choom. Like,
yeah, which is actually on breathing now, because
but when we wrote it, it was kind of like what's kind of a dumb way we can end this song, you know?
Yeah, it was
like trying to be funny and like a little bit ironic, I guess. So we were just like choom, like just a huge hit. But it ended up being really cool because now it's a great transition into the next song.
Yeah, which we can talk about now too.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered the other song, how we wrote it, recorded it, pretty straightforward. But so yeah, moving on to the next song, Breathing.
Heck yeah.
Which is, I think,
our third single.
I think it's the most well-produced song on the album.
I agree.
It sounds great.
Except for the last song, that one's sick.
This one's better.
Yeah, this one's better.
More concise.
But the last song is second for sure.
If you want to know what the song is about, come to one of our shows, because I usually tell the story of how I wrote it.
Ever since our first show,
I've told the song, the story. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that, but I do want to talk about how we wrote it. Bob Dylan. You guys know that guy? You ever heard of Bob Dylan before?
Bobby.
Bob Dylan has a song called Boots of Spanish Leather, which is a great song. One of my favorite songs ever. And I remember I listened to that song like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, that's really cool. And I like tried to learn it without actually listening to it. I was just playing around with my acoustic guitar in my free time, and I was like, oh yeah, I should try to learn this song. Like, how does it sound again? And I sort of like came up with these 3 chords, just really basic. And I went back and listened to the Bob Dylan song, and it was nothing close to the song, to what I remembered it being as. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I basically just wrote like a new progression, thinking that it was this song by Bob Dylan, even though it's not. And then when I was writing lyrics for a totally different song, a lot of the lyrics were thematically similar to this Bob Dylan song, and like the basic structure or the basic like story of the Bob Dylan song, Boots of Spanish Leather, was like very closely related to the story I was trying to tell with this new song. So I was like, I feel like I should use this riff that I accidentally wrote while trying to learn a Bob Dylan song in this song that's thematically similar to this Bob Dylan song.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah, it was very convoluted, but it worked out really well.
And we also wanted some front bottom vibes in there too.
Yes. If you know the song Raining by the Front Bottoms, that was a big inspiration for this song. Sonically, you could say. But
Ooh.
yeah, so
Sonic
pretty
the
straightforward.
Hedgehog.
This is another song. Nice. This is another song that I was hesitant to record because I knew that it was going to be hard to match the vision, but actually ended up being pretty easy.
Yeah, it was sick.
Right off the bat, we recorded the guitar part, and it just sounded really, really crisp. And I was like, "That's sick." And then
Everything went really well.
Recorded the bass. Yeah, this was like, I think this was the second to last song that we tracked.
Mm-hmm.
We just did it all in one night with Jack.
Yep.
We stayed up till like 4 a.m. because we tracked a lot of stuff, and then we were like, "This is not good. This is out of time." So we went into the kitchen of the church, made a giant pot of coffee, cowboy coffee, because we didn't have a coffee maker. So we
did a ghetto pour over.
We did like just a coffee filter with coffee in it, and just poured hot water on it and drank it. It was awful, but it kept us going till 4 a.m. We had to retrack pretty much everything, but absolutely was worth it because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. And we were debating whether or not we wanted this or Homeless to be our third single.
Yeah.
I'm glad we chose.
I'm glad we
this
picked
as
this
our
one.
third single.
Yeah, it was a good single. And then I guess the last thing to say about like cool facts about recording it. Again, this song has an outro where it's just acoustic guitar and singing. That is kind of our theme, I guess. I don't know. Maybe not intentionally, but that's how it worked out. But anyways, this has a outro where it's just me singing and playing acoustic. And we recorded that in one track, which is one room mic. You know, we were like, we could do it separately, but I think it'd be like more emotional if I was just playing and singing it. And we tracked it, and we realized that there was like some weird like notes on the guitar that were kind of being like stretched. Like it almost sounds like a vibrato. And I was like, I did not play it that way. Like that's very strange. But we found out it was because the track we were recording it in had a tuning plugin on it because it was a vocal track. Mm-hmm. So it was basically like it was taking the notes that are on my guitar that are just a little bit out of tune because like technically it's impossible for a guitar to be perfectly in tune. So it was taking those notes that were like just barely out of tune and trying to like stretch them into the right note.
Yeah.
And it sounded really cool.
Sounds so cool.
So Jack was like, "Oh, I know what the problem is. I think this tuning plugin is affecting the way your guitar sounds." So we turned it off, and then we listened to it, and we all agreed like instantly. It was like, we need to turn that back on because like even though it like makes it sound weird, it's barely noticeable and it's really cool. So yeah, it almost sounds like you're listening on like a cassette tape that's like speeding up and slowing down. That's just what it made me think of.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, another good song.
So yeah, last song.
We got one more song to talk about.
The Man Inside My House.
If you're still listening, thank you for making it this far.
You're a real one.
Because this is probably really boring, but we don't care.
Yeah, we don't care.
We don't care if you think this is boring.
Because we're having a blast over here.
Yeah.
And we're going to post it anyway.
Yeah.
So
you can't stop us from posting this.
This one is my personal favorite. I love this song.
This is a good one.
This song, oh my God.
I've always thought that there are 2 ways to end an album. 2 acceptable ways to end an album. The first one is like with a very introspective and chill and stripped down song. I'm trying to think of a good example of an album that ends that way. I guess. Let's take a look at all these albums that I have here. This is awkward. I should have prepared this before. Well,
it's okay.
Switchfoot. Switchfoot, one of my favorite bands. Their album "Oh Gravity" ends with this very like almost understated like acoustic guitar and vocal track. It does kind of build into something else, but I'm missing the point. The point is, there's 2 ways to end an album. One with a very like introspective, almost understated track that sort of wraps everything up, but also like leaves you hanging. But the second way I've always thought you should end an album is with this like huge, like grandiose, in your face, like rockin', ripping, sizzling track.
Oh yeah.
The example I have for this is Muse's album, Black Holes and Revelations, which ends with Knights of Sidonia, which is this like freaking rock opera about like cowboys and space and like robots. Yeah, I should have come prepared with an example for the first way, but it's not important because the fact is we chose the second way.
Yeah.
The crazy, like, ripping, big song.
Yeah. We also wanted to tie it back to
we also wanted
song.
it to come full circle. So if you didn't catch on, the first song is called The Man Outside My Window. The last song is called The Man Inside My House. And there's also a lot of little musical parallels that I'm not going to point out because I think you can find those for yourself because they're kind of cool. But yeah, this was the last song we recorded. It's also the last song on the album.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of saying it's like the second best produced song because of just where we grew as musicians and where Jack grew as a producer
and where we grew, like the process we had developed by this point of like being able to record stuff with Jack specifically and in a specific studio was like so tight that this song was not difficult at all to track, which was cool. I don't know if there's any cool stories. I think it was written
well.
It was written pretty much straightforward. Some of the lyrics actually for the second bridge, which is like, we will find out as it crumbles what the purpose was. We will see all we fought for, shattered dust to dust.
Yeah.
That's something I wrote like a year and a half ago. Not even for a PSAP song, just like I thought it was cool, so I wrote it down. I didn't know what I was going to use it for, but sort of came full circle, and it fit really nicely with that riff that I had. So I don't know, it's very eclectic, I guess, like style wise.
I love how it's just perfect like for an ending because it's different.
It's different, but it's the same
chorus or like the pre-chorus.
Yeah,
pre-chorus.
There's like tempo changes.
For me, is a lot different than what is on the album.
Yeah, the pre-chorus
so cool.
is very Interpol. If you know the band Interpol, the bridge, I guess you'd call it, is very 21 Pilots. We love 21 Pilots. We've accepted that we'll never be able to make music exactly like them because they're just amazing in ways that we're not. But I think we wanted a little bit of like specifically their album Vessel. There's kind of like this little bop, with like an organ that's in this song and like some groovy drum fills, which honestly comes out of nowhere. Like that's the only thing about the song that I was like, oh, I had this idea. Let's just jam it in there, and see if it works. And see what sticks. I think that's a lot of things for this album is like, let's just throw everything we have at the wall, and then like whatever sticks, whatever doesn't, doesn't. That's why the album went from 23 tracks to 9 tracks because a lot of them just didn't work in this setting. So. This song is, I guess, a good example of like taking a bunch of different things, like different tempos, different like keys and stuff. So we had written the verses and the choruses and like the bridges and stuff, and we just practiced them on our own without a metronome. But then when we went to record them, we were like, either this needs to be faster or this needs to be slower because they're not lining up. But neither of them sounded good at the tempo of the other one, and that was when we were like, oh shoot, I guess we just wrote these and practiced them at different tempos. But we can't have a tempo change in the middle of the song. That'd be crazy. But then we were like, you know what? Screw it. We're going to have a tempo change in the middle of the song. Like twice. It's going to change back and forth.
The second one was flawless for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, we got lucky where I just immediately went into the tempo change perfectly with the drums.
That's true.
And I was like, this is sick. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun when we recorded. And
I think
I have a video of you playing the organ right at the end when we finally finished recording the album.
The last thing, this is where the organ accordion thing makes its third and final appearance on the album. And it's cool because it's like the first thing you hear in the first song, and it's also the last thing you hear in the last song. So
yeah.
What else? Yeah, I mean, it was just really cool, like, to record this. For this to be the last thing that we have to say and the last thing that we recorded, I think it was kind of a cool experience.
You want to talk about like the Beatles thing?
Oh yeah. So my dad, Sam Charles Skillerton III.
If you wanted to know.
That's not a joke. He is the third. My brother's the fourth, but he is like the world's biggest Beatles fan. He's a big part of the reason that like I love music so much. He's always been like a really big fan of music, I guess. I mean, I don't really know how else to put
Well,
it.
he encouraged you a lot.
He encouraged me a lot, and he was the first person to show me music other than like worship music as a kid. Honestly, like, you know, every once in a while, I'd change it to like classic rock and be like, "Oh yeah, this song's cool," or like, "This is this band, and this is who was in this, and this is why this is important, and this is like politically where they were coming from." And I think like
very knowledgeable musical person.
He's a very knowledgeable person in general. Shout out to my dad. Thanks, Dad, for a lot of things, but specifically for showing me the song I think it's Day in the Life, or I need to fact check this, but it's the last song on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, arguably like one of the most influential albums ever. There's all sorts of crazy stuff about this album you can look up, like how it inspired different musicians, and like even like the way that albums are recorded, or like even the way that album art works. Like this album shaped a lot of that. But hold on, I'm looking up what this song is called. I'm pretty sure it's Day in the Life.
You gonna play it?
Can we have it? I don't know if we can. Anyways, the point is, the song ends
with this
huge hit. So my dad was telling me about this, and he was like, "Just listen to this because this is sick." So it's this huge build up, and then everything cuts out, and then there's this like crazy note that like I think the first time you hear it, you won't even understand what it is because it's just like this, and it like rings out forever. And my dad was like, what they did was they recorded the same chord on like 100 different pianos in like all these different octaves, and then they layered them on top of each other. And then as the notes were getting quieter, they automated the volume to go up, so that like seemingly like it's this note that basically never ends. Like I think it goes on for like 50 seconds in the song of like this initial hit, and then even as the noise is decaying, the volume is like leveling up, so it just seems like it goes on like infinitely. So yeah, we didn't want to. I mean, I wouldn't call it stealing because we didn't recreate that exactly, but
and we used a lot of MIDI instruments too.
Yeah, we used like the recording process was different. Hello.
That's okay. We're at the end of our.
Please
podcast.
welcome Bryce's wife, Katie Beers. Yay! It's a podcast.
Anyway, thanks, guys.
we borrowed that note from the Beatles. That's how the album ends.
Yeah.
All that to say, it's just what we did.
Yep, and that's how we wrote our album. Thanks, guys.
All right, what a great place to end. Not rushed at all. Goodbye, and thanks for tuning in.
See you next time
Pluto's
on Pluto's Still a Podcast. Yeah.